I remember the day I landed in Germany for the very first time. It was early morning and the air was cold and fresh. As I stepped out of the airport in Berlin, everything around me looked so clean and organized. There was a quiet energy in the city, something calm yet powerful. I had always been curious about Germany, its history, its people, its technology, and its culture. And finally I was here. The taxi ride from the airport to my hotel was smooth. I looked out of the window and saw wide roads, neat buildings, and trees lined up like soldiers. The architecture was a mix of old and new. There were modern glass towers standing beside classic old buildings that seemed to whisper stories from the past. My heart was full of excitement. I was ready to explore, to learn, and to experience something new. The first place I visited was the Brandenburg Gate. I had seen pictures before, but standing in front of it gave me goosebumps. It was huge, beautiful, and full of history. I touched the cold stone and tried to imagine the many events this place had seen. Tourists were taking pictures, and some were just sitting quietly, looking up. I did the same. I wanted to feel everything. Next, I went to the Berlin Wall Memorial. I had read about the Berlin Wall in books and studied it in school, but seeing it in person was something else. Pieces of the wall still stood, covered in graffiti and messages of hope and peace. I walked along the wall, reading the stories of people who lived during that time. Some of them escaped. Some did not. It made me think deeply about freedom, about struggle, and about human courage. Berlin had so much to offer. I visited museums, parks, and small local cafes. I tasted German bread for the first time, and I still remember the smell of fresh pretzels and butter. In one cafe, I met an old man who spoke a little English. We talked for an hour. He told me about life in Germany before and after the war. He showed me a picture of his family and gave me a coin from the old East Germany. I still have that coin. It reminds me of that moment. One day, I took a train to Munich. The trains in Germany are fast and comfortable. I sat by the window and watched the countryside go by. Green fields, small villages and red-roofed houses passed like scenes from a movie. In Munich, I visited the Marienplatz, the city square, and saw the Glockenspiel show. The figures danced and moved as the bells rang, and everyone in the crowd smiled like children. It was magical. I also went to the English Garden, one of the largest city parks in the world. People were walking, jogging, and even surfing in the river. Yes, surfing. I had never seen anything like that. I sat on the grass, ate a sandwich, and watched the world go by. Everything felt peaceful and perfect. One of the most emotional moments of my trip was my visit to the Dachau concentration camp memorial. It was not an easy place to visit, but I felt it was important. I walked through the gates that said, Arbeit macht frei, and felt a heavy silence around me. The stories of the people who suffered there were painful to read. I saw the barracks, the watchtowers, and the small museum. I lit a candle and stood in silence. It reminded me of the importance of kindness, of never forgetting the past, and of building a better future. Of course, the food in Germany was a big part of my experience. I tried sausages, schnitzel, and different kinds of beer. One evening, I went to a traditional beer hall. There was music, dancing, and long wooden tables where strangers became friends. I sat next to a group of young Germans who invited me to join them. We laughed, shared stories, and raised our glasses together. It felt like home. Every city in Germany had its own charm. In Heidelberg, I walked along the old bridge and looked up at the castle on the hill. In Cologne, I stood inside the giant cathedral and felt the cool air touch my face. In Hamburg, I watched ships in the harbor and listened to the sound of seagulls. Each place gave me something to remember, something to carry with me. One night in Berlin, I stood on a bridge and looked at the city lights reflecting on the river. I thought about everything I had seen, felt, and learned. Germany was not just a place. It was a story, a lesson, a beautiful mix of pain and progress, of tradition and modernity. I had come here as a traveler, but I was leaving as a listener, a learner, and a friend. As my flight took off, I looked out of the window and whispered a soft goodbye. Germany had touched my heart in ways I could not explain. It taught me about strength, about healing, and about the beauty of moving forward. I knew that this was not the end. Someday I would return. That was my first time visiting Germany. A journey of reflection, discovery, and unforgettable memories. And I will carry it with me, always.